And that is the most fascinating thing to me every time I walk into a Starbucks and like people are at the counter and they're like, I want my frap, low fat, no milk, double pump, vanilla, cinnamon, this. And I'm like, I don't even know what they're ordering. And that is just like, that was the first, like that's community. And then to add this digital layer, I'm excited to see, you know, what happens. What's the next, you know, like 6 months looking like for Starbucks? Welcome back to another episode of Girl in the Verse, the video podcast. Now, FYI, for those listening, this episode is also available on video. And please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Now, today I'm joined by Joe, or as I like to call him, Bunchu Betts. He is one of the co-founders and head of Web3 strategy at Forum 3, as well as co-founder of dGEN Network. Joe is also leveraging his years of crypto and NFT experience, coupled with his formal sales and marketing background, to help lead digital transformation in the loyalty space for some of the world's largest brands, including one of, I think, a lot of our favorites, Starbucks. Joe, I'm so happy to have you here today. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. We were just talking prior about how we feel like we know each other. So this is a really awesome experience getting to talk with you face to face.
Yeah. And I honestly, I'm so excited to have this conversation and, you know, reading up upon your like history, right? All these years of sales and marketing, specifically in the loyalty space, which we know that Starbucks, you know, has one of the biggest loyalty programs, if not one of the biggest. And I remember when we first got the news that Starbucks was entering Web3 and, you know, diving into the space, more so into like the blockchain technology. I want you to maybe give us a little, like explain to us how it's called the Starbucks Odyssey. So explain to us how the Odyssey program works and why, or is it different from loyalty programs? But maybe start with the Starbucks Odyssey. What is it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So at the end of the day, what Starbucks Odyssey is it's a parallel loyalty program that runs, you know, in conjunction with their existing Starbucks loyalty program. So if you've ever, you know, used the Starbucks app, you're very familiar with the current loyalty program, right? So which is essentially, you know, you're spending on Starbucks items, and in return, you're getting those stars. The more stars you get, the more discounts that eventually leads to, right? So what Odyssey is it's kind of a parallel program that is gamified, and it is based on this concept of what we're calling experiential loyalty. And so the TLDR of Starbucks Odyssey is you join the program, you come in, you complete what's called journeys, and we can get into what all of that is, but you complete journeys and you earn stamps, and stamps are the NFT of it all. And inside those stamps, there are points in the metadata. So you log in, you complete journeys, you earn stamps, you level up. Those stamps that you have points lead to different levels. And based on those reward levels, you'll be granted access to certain rewards, right? So those could be anything like, you know, exclusive Odyssey or Starbucks experiences, special merchandise, potentially, you know, free items, things like that. And so it's really a gamified parallel rewards program based around this idea of almost like engagement loyalty. And so that's at the core what Starbucks Odyssey is.
Now, what I loved about Starbucks strategy there, and I know basically you're sort of, I guess Forum is advising Starbucks, right? And you're not a Starbucks employee.
Correct.
Talk to me about that decision to not call it NFTs and calling it digital collectibles. I think that was a big win. We saw, anyway, in the space, we called it a big win, but why? Like, why not NFTs?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I think it's an important one to think about, especially in the context of what Starbucks Rewards is, and also just kind of what NFTs are as a technology layer, right? So I'll start with the Starbucks of it all, which is, the Starbucks traditional Starbucks loyalty program has 27 million monthly active users. That's a very large amount of people. And the amount of those people that are familiar with NFT or crypto terminology is probably, 0.001% of that, right? So the real first decision came on, how do you position a program like this in a way that's attractive to people that have never interacted with the tech before, that makes sense to them from how they're used to interacting with Starbucks, right? So, one of the reasons it was stamps is initially as you mentioned before, it's called Starbucks Odyssey. So Odyssey, represents this idea of taking a journey or travel or things like that. And so, we had this concept of it being like a passport. And so what do you put in a passport? You put stamps, right? So that was kind of our initial thought of why stamps. But the real reason was not that we wanted to obfuscate or hide the fact that it is NFT technology, but personally, I'm of the philosophy that the term NFT is not going to be a term that we use long term to describe what we're doing here, right? So, I always use the analogy, when you open up your Spotify app this morning, you don't say, "Hey, I'm going to go listen to my favorite MP3s." You say, "I'm going to go listen to music," right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
same thing is going to apply here at some point, right? Because NFTs as a technology, as a data layer, as that piece of it, are going to be referred to eventually in the future as what they represent, whether that's in this case a Starbucks Odyssey stamp / digital collectible. Is it a ticket? Is it a receipt? Is it the deed to your house? Right? Like you're going to refer to them as the thing that they actually function as. And so in this situation, it's a digital collectible, but it follows the theme of Odyssey as a stamp. So, that's a little bit about why specifically for Odyssey, and then a little on like the theory behind where we're coming from there. I just don't think that, that term NFT, first of all, it has a stigma to it as well, right? Like in the current climate, you say NFT and people kind of already have a reaction. And so part of it too is, yeah, well, part of it too is that we want to be able to demonstrate what the actual technology can do in a way that people would be open to digesting right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in a way, it's sort of like, how do we get more people involved without having to explain it all? Because that's one of the things, right? Right now, it takes us over an hour to explain what we're doing, like why we're in this space. So, and not everyone has that time. And a lot of people have made that very clear to me. They're like, Melina, I just don't have the time. And I think, for a lot of people right now, it's not about learning that technology. They just want to see that app come to fruition, right? It's just like how
100%.
we open up Instagram. It's like, we don't care what's behind it. We just want to go post stuff. So
that's exactly right. And that was the philosophy here too. And just like a funny anecdote, we hired our head of product at Forum 3. Her name is Mav. She's awesome. We hired her from Microsoft, and she had never had any Web3 experience prior. And so when we were kind of bringing her on board, she went out and she documented as like an exercise in user experience. She went out and documented how long and how many steps it took her to onboard to crypto and purchase an NFT from OpenSea. And it was something ridiculous. Like it took her 3 hours and 78 different steps. And she had screenshots of everything she did. And, as we were doing this, I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, this cannot be how this platform works if we want people to have a good experience with this technology. And so, that kind of stuff really inspired a lot of the decisions that we made with how the platform is presented and built.
Can you tell us, why did Starbucks decide to even dive into this space? I'm like,
Yeah.
you're thinking like, what was that conversation like? Like, what did Starbucks first say? What was their first reactions? And then, how did this all pan out?
Yeah, this is a really fun one too, because, um, you know, Forum 3 was in a really unique position to be able to work with Starbucks on this. One of our other co-founders, his name is Adam Brockman. He's the former chief digital officer of Starbucks. So he worked there for many years under Howard Schultz, and he actually, him and his team were the ones that kind of pioneered the loyalty program, the mobile order and pay that you see now. So he's had a very successful career at Starbucks prior to us starting Forum 3. And because of that, he obviously had a good relationship with Howard Schultz. And Howard was actually interested in what we were doing in Web3 just prior to any of this. And where he was not the CEO of Starbucks, he was just interested in what we were doing. And as we kind of talked through the technology with him more, Adam had a couple sit downs with him and explained what we were doing, and he found it really interesting. And by happenstance, a couple months later, he went back to be the CEO of Starbucks again for the third time. And it was at that point where he kind of tapped Adam and was like, "Hey, let's take these ideas and implement them for Starbucks." And so that kind of started it all. And this was probably February of 2022, and then May of 2022, we went out, myself, Adam, and our first employee, Morgan Matoski, went out to Starbucks to kind of meet with all the different teams. And when we went out there, our goal was not to pitch Starbucks Odyssey, right? Like, we hadn't ideated it yet. Our goal when we were there was to educate them on what the technology can do, how to use it, how to implement it in a way that, we had a hypothesis and thesis on how, but it wasn't a sales pitch, right? It was an education session. And we met with all of the different cross-functional teams. We met with their education team, we met with their product team, we met with the marketing team and partnerships, all of that. And as soon as we met with the loyalty team, that was where they grabbed this idea and were like, "Oh my goodness, we've actually been waiting for something like this." And the interesting thing there that I found fascinating was Starbucks, this massive corporation with 27 million loyalty users, has an incredible amount of data on their users, and they've done a incredible amount of research on what the members of their loyalty program want, what motivates them, what inspires them, what their needs are as a member of a loyalty program. And the data that they had supported a more robust kind of experiential type of loyalty program, as opposed to a transactional one in which the current loyalty program is. And so what I mean by that is, and for Starbucks too, from a business case, right, where you have a program that big, and what you're doing is directly, anything you do with that traditional loyalty program, it directly impacts your discount line. So anytime they go give you $5 in free stars, that's $5 times 27 million users or whatever, becomes very costly. And there's a diminishing return at that point. And, when you think about experiential programs like this and what the feedback from the consumer was, it was too cost prohibitive to make accretive changes to that current loyalty program under the structure that it was. So that's why they were like looking for something like this. And that was when, they grabbed onto the idea, and kind of from there, the, philosophical idea of Starbucks Odyssey was born, and now it's come to life.
So I had to take this, I wrote it down because I was like, I didn't want to forget, but what do you think it was that lit up that spark? Because we all sort of say that, right? When we enter the space, we're like, and something happened where I got it. What was that moment, do you think, for Starbucks? What did you guys say?
Yeah, when we talk about the benefits of this technology as it relates to a brand or a creator, anything, right? We always talk about it in terms of NFTs kind of being able to unlock the intangible, right? And so when I say that in relation to Starbucks, Starbucks is this massive corporation, one of the biggest brands of the world, most recognized brands in the world. And the intangible brand value that Starbucks has as a company that is just kind of locked inside of it is incredible. And what I mean by that is, they could go partner with any business, any company, any creator, any musician, any artist in the world. Everybody wants to work with Starbucks. In the past, there's not really been a way to exchange that value or pass that along to a consumer. What the relationship is much more kind of push marketing with those types of relationships, right? And NFTs in a gamified way like this allow you to unlock some of that stuff, right? And so what if Starbucks could partner with, a very well-known artist and deliver a piece of digital art to you for your loyalty as a customer? Well, that's really cool. And you might say, well, I'd rather have my free coffee. Yeah, you might, but there's going to be a lot of people out there that would really, really, really resonate with getting this very cool piece of art from a company that they love, right? And a collaboration that they love. And being able to kind of pass that value down to a consumer is really powerful. Like, you create this kind of user-generated content, user-generated capital, community relationship that didn't ever exist before. And this idea of community and togetherness is really attractive to Starbucks. And also, the last thing is this idea that NFTs can connect people to each other and people to the brand in a way that's never been able to be done before. So like Starbucks has this history of collectibles, right? They've got all of these, mugs from different places that people collect. People collect the tumblers. They've done these promotional items that are collectible. And so an example I always use is based in Seattle, they've done stuff with the Seattle Mariners. There's these old Seattle Mariners Ichiro promotional baseball cards that they had. And, they gave them out, and whoever has them, that says something about them, right? It says they're a Starbucks fan. It says they're a Seattle Mariners fan. It kind of says that they might be located in Seattle area, et cetera, et cetera. However, it's a physical thing that somebody's probably got in their desk somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, if that were now a digital collectible, one, it lasts forever, but two, it's now programmable, meaning Starbucks could offer back to that person in a way that they were never able to do with a physical version of that collectible. And two, they could connect, meaning many to many. They could now see and potentially connect all of those Ichiro card holders together, right? And now you've got community around this shared love of a brand, shared love of their baseball team, all of this stuff. And that's really powerful. So there's a lot of things that Starbucks loved about it, but really it boils down to this ability to kind of unlock this intangible brand value that they have and program back to their most loyal people.
It's funny that you mentioned this, because when I try to explain it to people who don't get it, I try to say, you'll have a digital version of that thing you love, but everyone automatically always goes back to, well, I want the physical. Like, I don't care for the digital. Why would you, or how would you respond to that when people tell you, Banshu, I just want the physical, I don't care for the digital?
Yeah. One, I think there's room for both. I would potentially argue that the digital is better because if you've ever looked at my house, the physical is clutter, right, everywhere, right? But also there's not a great way to share physical stuff, meaning it's hard to flex, right? Like, I've got these shoes behind me. These are a very rare pair of Fuocious artifact physical shoes. You don't know I have them unless I'm talking to you on this video, and I have made the effort to put them out there that I have this, right? So there's this first aspect of ease of presentation, and in a world in which we live all digitally, our flexes become digital, right? So that's one piece. But two, I think that, and I always say this, is when you think of, I relate it to the physical collectible. The physical collectible market right now in the world is about $360 billion this year. And it's projected to be about 800 billion by the year 2028.
Wow.
And so that's a tremendous amount of growth in just collectibles. And the idea that all that growth is going to come solely from physical as the world gets more and more digital, I think is silly. And what the power though is with a digital collectible, and this is to your question, how I explain it to somebody, right? So imagine your physical, and it's the same example as the Ichiro, where you can now, if you digitize that physical or digitize your collectible in general, now not only is it the same from a scarcity, a community, the story of why that thing is collectible is the same, but now there's power in it being digital because for the first time ever, you can program to it, right? So meaning if I'm the issuer of that collectible, I know a lot about who holds my collectibles and I can be offered things by those creators. So say let's use a New York Yankees baseball bat, right? Someone knows I have it, that I bought it from them, but that's it. Like the Yankees don't know that I have it. But if I had a Yankees rare collectible card in my wallet that somebody could see, that says a lot about me, right? And so, and that actually opens me up to be offered more exclusive things in the future, right? So for example, all these Starbucks stamps now, because they're on a public blockchain, can be seen by anybody. So you're going to know if you pull the wallet address of a Starbucks power stamp holder, a lot about that person, right? You're going to know that they frequent that place a lot. And that can be kind of programmed to, whether it's a competitor trying to, swoon them away from Starbucks, whether it's a coffee maker company that wants to offer you a discount, whether it's, any of that kind of stuff that doesn't exist with just your physical. So while I don't explain it in a way that's like, oh no, this is better than holding something in your hand, because you're never going to convince somebody of that, right? Like if that is their thing, they want to hold it in their hand, then that's great. But I always use the programmability piece, right? It's that usually gets people to kind of have this like light bulb moment. And I think that's really powerful. And the fact that you can verify digitally that you own something now is really a game changer because it never existed before.
Why do you think more people should care about it? Because that's another thing for me is, right, we go past the, okay, I want the physical, but even in this sense with Starbucks, I think also for the customer, it's feeling like they're now a part of that story. They're a part of that business too, right?
100%. Yeah, it's amazing to see that reaction in Odyssey as we're rolling it out and people are getting engaged, because that's exactly what we philosophized or like hypothesized would happen. And to see it coming true in real time as we roll it out is really interesting, right? So what you'll like, there's a real power of a digital ownership of something that a brand has put out, right? Like for the first time, especially in the sense of loyalty, in the sense that like now I really do feel like I have ownership of something, of part of that brand, and I'm part of co-creating an experience. Or like we're seeing such cool things happen inside the community with just like people making Starbucks art or giving us great ideas for things you could do inside the community and benefits and things like that. And they really feel like they're part of building something, and it really deepens that relationship as a brand, or with the brand. And so it's twofold. Like, why does a brand care about this? I mean, it's obvious, right? You're getting people that are coming and learning and engaging with you as a brand that you can now touch in ways that you never could before. And as a consumer, like you care about it because that's the relationship that consumer and brand are heading towards. Like I always say, like people ask, well, why would a company like Starbucks do something like this? They already have this rewards program. Well, the consumer is changing, right? And they're changing in the way we're in this like attention economy right now, and everybody is vying for your attention as a consumer, my attention as whatever. And the what happens is, if you, as a consumer, the old method of loyalty used to be, it used to feel like, oh, I as a consumer owed something to the brand, like I owe them my loyalty. And I think that relationship is switching, and I think the brand now owes the customer loyalty, right? And that concept, when you flip it on its head, right, that's the idea of this attention economy that we're vying for. The consumer feels empowered because the consumer feels like, hey, it's my hard-earned money, make me spend it with you, right? Like, and
I like
so
that.
these
Yeah.
these brands that are engaging in stuff like this are able to capture the most engaged consumers, people that want to be part of shaping the brand, people who want to be part of shaping the experience, in not just people who buy the most coffee, because people who buy the most coffee are great. They add to your bottom line, but they don't necessarily help shape the growth of your business and feedback, right? And that's what's happening inside this community, and it's really powerful.
Now, I'm not going to lie, I am FOMOing a little because I am here in Canada and I don't have access to all of these goodies that you're talking about. So I know that's, I know Starbucks right now is only, the Odyssey program is only rolled out in the US. Can you maybe, tell us a little more about these stamps? I know you also, Starbucks launched its first limited edition NFT drop. How does it all work? And there's a game. So maybe walk us through, some of the things we can currently see when we open up, the app, the Odyssey section and whatnot.
Yeah, so I'll start like very basically on how the app functions, right? So it's a mobile friendly, responsive web app, right? So you can access it preferably on your desktop, but it works on your mobile browser as well. And what's really interesting about, the first thing that's super interesting about it is logging into the app, you're actually just using your Starbucks rewards credentials, right? So the same thing you would log into your Starbucks mobile app with, you're logging into Odyssey with. What's cool about that is that allows the two applications to talk, meaning I can now track essentially anything that you do in store, meaning I have access to your purchase history. So what that allows us to do is some really cool things with these journeys, meaning, you can kind of gamify purchase experiences. So when you log in, you'll see kind of this, your screen, you'll be able to pick your profile picture, your username, all of that fun stuff. And then you'll see kind of 3 tabs, and one is journeys, one is stamps, and one is the marketplace. And when you go into the journey section, that's really kind of the meat of the activities, right? So right now, I think there's 5 or 6 journeys that are live for you to be able to complete. And you can think of a journey almost like as this kind of quest, right? Where each journey will have, 4 or 5 different, checkpoints to complete things in. And when you complete all of those tasks, you earn your stamp, and that's your NFT. And so, for example, we have the Starbucks Heritage Journey, which is one of the first journeys you can complete. And what you'll see inside there is really interesting, is it's a lot of like branded content that it's asking you to engage with. So for example, like take a virtual tour of the Costa Rica coffee farm. It's a very cool virtual experience that walks you through what the coffee farm is like. And at the end, you answer a question, and then you do that, you get your check, and you're on to the next. And you complete all your 5 things, and that's when you earn your stamp. Your stamp has points embedded into the metadata of it. So what's cool about that is, for the first time, you actually kind of own your loyalty. When you think of it in a Web 2 sense, like, yeah, you earn your stars, but the stars are not yours to buy, sell, trade, transfer, whatever. Your stamps are. So you can then take them to the marketplace and you can interact with them. So say you earn your stamp, you're not really digging the rewards, whatever. You want to go rather sell it for, $80 and buy yourself coffee for the month, right? Like, and there's something really cool there, because the person who earns a stamp for essentially kind of doing work inside the Starbucks ecosystem, you're engaging with the brand via content or activities or whatever, And if you don't like what the, the outcome is, you can sell it to somebody who's maybe more engaged with that does like it. And what's crazy about that, again, is like this intangible brand value is what you're unlocking there. Person X sells a stamp to somebody who really wants that reward. Well, Starbucks has just created them, user generated capital, which is really interesting. It's like giving somebody value in your brand for just engaging with it, which is really fun. And so again, you're completing these journeys and you're earning the stamps. The stamps get you certain levels inside of the game. And then there's like quarterly benefit selection periods that will have different options based on, what level in the game you're at. And also, based on that, there's going to be things like airdrops, collaborations that we do that you might be eligible for only at certain levels, things like that. So that's basically how it works, what you'll see. And then again, there's a whole kind of private Starbucks marketplace. One of the cool things is, it's built, we talked about kind of ease of use. It's built in this almost Web 2.5 way, in which, you could come in as somebody who's never used NFTs or crypto before and participate in the program, never have to know how to set up a seed phrase or a wallet or anything like that. It's all kind of done in a custodial fashion up front. However, we give you the option to self-custody everything. So if you are Web3 native or you're Web3 curious and you want to come in and really kind of graduate into self-custody, that's an option as well. So while they can be sold on the private Starbucks marketplace, they're also available to pull off and take onto places like OpenSea and things like that. One other thing that I think that you'll find really interesting about is the content, right? I mentioned that you're engaging with this branded content. And what I find fascinating about this, not just for Starbucks, but anybody who is thinking about programs like this in terms of loyalty. I mentioned earlier that we're in this like attention economy. And right now what that looks like is brands or creators or whatever is doing all this push content out to get your attention. And it's either falling flat, not being watched, and things like that, or not feeling authentic, right? And what is fascinating to me is how much that relationship changes when you incentivize it properly, right? And so the example that I like to give is that coffee farm tour, right? That existed prior to Starbucks Odyssey, and nobody ever engaged with it, watched it, knew it existed, right? Like, and the second you put it in a proper incentivized model that felt authentic to somebody, the reaction is not, oh, I had to sit through this virtual coffee farm. It's actually, oh, that was such a cool little coffee tour that you just took me on. I didn't even know that I like wanted to learn about that, right? And now they've created this, atmosphere in which you're being incentivized to engage with that branded content. The branded content feels authentic to the atmosphere that you're in, that you're opting in to participate in. And as such, you've kind of now solidified this deeper relationship with the brand. And so, that's not just a Starbucks thing. This could be done with any brand that's making content. And right now, that's all brands, right? Like I always say that like every brand out there, every person out there is a content creator in one way or another. And the people that understand that the best are going to win. And so like, that was one of the fascinating things to me is being able to kind of repackage a piece of content that existed that nobody really ever engaged with. And you put it in the right atmosphere with the right incentives and everything changes.
I mean, of course. And that's why, too, I think even for myself, when I learned that Starbucks was entering, it just made sense to me. I mean, first of all, Starbucks, a long time ago, like nicknamed, like coffee person, a barista. And I remember everyone was like, what is that? And like, that was Starbucks. Starbucks did that, right? The same thing with like, my girlfriends who know their Starbucks order to a T. And that is the most fascinating thing to me every time I walk into a Starbucks and like people are at the counter and they're like, I want my frap, low fat, no milk, double pump, vanilla, cinnamon, this. And I'm like, I don't even know what they're ordering. And that is just like, that was the first like that's community. And then to add this digital layer, I'm excited to see, what happens. But do you, Bunchu, have a Starbucks order that you know to the T? Do you have one? I want to know if you.
You know, it's funny. I'm typically like a black coffee drinker, so my usual go-to is my, just venti Pike Place Black. However, uh, because of that, I'm not used to the wacky orders. So what actually happens is when we go through the drive-through and I'm driving and my wife's in the passenger seat and she's giving me her order, and how like embarrassed I am at the drive-through to having to say this order to somebody. I'm like, can you just get like a latte or something? Like, do I need to say all of that? She's like, yes, you need to say all of that. So
It is, it's fascinating to me. I want to know from people down below if you can comment your Starbucks coffee order, because I really think it's an art, and Starbucks has built that,
One of my friends, she's pretty like popular on Instagram, and so she's always creating content on Instagram, and she did one video where it was really just her like walking to work, but she was talking about how she stopped at Starbucks and she like holds up her cup, and it's even in like two different venti cups, and she goes through what the order is, and I had to watch it 3 times because I was like, I couldn't repeat that. If like I need ChatGPT to write that order for me, I could not handle.
Yeah, I'm also like dark roast. I sometimes still get confused. I'm like, is it a venti? Like, what is your small? I'm just like, I still don't know the order.
No, the venti's the big one.
There you go. What else can you tell me about Starbucks? Where what's the next, like 6 months looking like for Starbucks? Anything you can tell us right now? I mean, like I said, you guys just launched the first limited edition NFT drop. That was a complete success. What's next?
Yeah, that was a success. We're definitely still in beta with the program from a lot of different standpoints, right? There's a lot of building that has to happen and tweaking and testing that has to happen between, the front end and the Web3 side and the Starbucks API to be able to make sure everything kind of works in real time. So we're working through a lot of that. So we have, the beta group that's kind of being onboarded and dripped in slowly from the wait lists, and, the Discord community that we have going on, which is really fun. And they're kind of helping us, work through some of those technical kinks. And, we had some troubles with that stuff on the first big drop here, where obviously we need to beef up the infrastructure. But other than like that stuff, right, the drop was a total success. Like, it sold out in 18 minutes, and it probably would have been 8 if there wasn't any lag and things like that. And I don't like to talk too much on I don't like to talk too much on like the floor and stuff, but like,
no.
They're just like, people are going wild over these things because they're the Siren, right? The Starbucks Siren collection, which is their iconic piece of IP, and people own a digital collectible of that for the first time. It's really cool. And so what you'll see in the next 6 months is kind of really, I think, tweaking the tech side of it, making sure it really starts to work seamlessly before we onboard kind of the next big wave of people. In conjunction with that, we'll have our first benefits selection period coming at the end of April. This is really cool because, it'll be the first time to kind of see where you're at in the level wise in the game, and then be able to kind of pick, what rewards you wanted to see from that. And so there'll be a couple different options for every different level, which is really cool. And then, you'll probably see us do our first kind of big collaboration coming up in the next couple months as well, which is really cool. Can't give too many details on that, but we're working with, both, I would say, very well-known, sought-after kind of traditional artists and musicians even potentially, as well as Web3 collaborators. So there's some really cool Web3 IP that we might be working with in the future as well. And so you'll see all that kind of stuff. You'll see more journeys, and then you'll see kind of towards the end of the year what the next iteration of this looks like in terms of how do you keep a program like this going multi-year, like as a lifetime thing from a strategy standpoint, right? So, you know, with loyalty, you've got to manage this whole points universe, but how do you keep that in check with also being able to kind of reward your biggest users of the platform in the past and going forward, right? So I think you'll see towards the end of the year how a lifetime score might work inside the game and things like that. So that's kind of where we're headed at the next phase of this, which will be really interesting. And hopefully we're able to kind of tap into that existing rewards customer, pool and onboard a lot more people as well.
Will you be coming to Canada anytime soon? I know right now, like I said, it's US only. Is that in the works, or we're gonna still try to figure out all these kinks and then I mean, I know it's long-term plans, but would Canadians have access to sort of be the OGs of Canada, since I feel like I'm an OG of Starbucks, but my wallet's empty. I don't have a stamp.
I understand. Yeah, it's funny. The international thing is tricky because one, it is a huge legal lift to get a program like this off the ground in the US first. So definitely from that standpoint, it was always going to kind of be the US first testing ground. But the other thing that makes it a little tricky, which I think is really interesting when you think of how blockchain can solve this problem in the future, right, is the way Starbucks stores are structured. They don't like international stores are a different structure than US stores, meaning they are owned differently as far as maybe not being a corporate owned store, which means some of them have different systems, right? So that system compatibility globally doesn't quite exist yet, right? So that's another reason that you will probably see a slow rollout for other regions. But like I mentioned, right, when you think of blockchain being this kind of global consensus, right, and where you put that data as, like, you could definitely see a world in which those systems become kind of less convoluted because of blockchain rather than by blockchain, right? So I think, you'll definitely see different regions roll out. It's not something probably that's going to happen in a quick way just because of all of those different things, but it's definitely on plans eventually.
Sounds good. I'll be here with my venti, with my black roast venti. I'll be here. Thank you so much, Banshu. Of course, like I always, encourage everyone, the hottest conversations, I don't know about you, Banshu, but the hottest conversations I have with my community is up in the DMs. And so I always tell people, come and reach out up in the DMs, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just come reach out to me. You know where to find me, @GirlInTheVerse. If you want to join Starbucks Odyssey, there is a wait list. I'll put all the links down below, as well as you can follow Banshu and Forum up on Twitter. Again, all the links will be down below. And as always, if you could please like, follow, share, and please subscribe to the podcast. This is how I get to do what I love. So, right, Banshu? This is how we get to do what we love.
That is absolutely right. Make sure you're giving those likes and hitting the DMs too, because that's where the magic happens. But I appreciate you having me. If anybody wants to chat with me, you can hit me up in the DMs too. I pretty much live on Twitter, so if you find me on Twitter, feel free to hit me up. But thank you so much for having me. This was awesome, and I'm so glad we finally got to chat.
I know. Thank you so much, Banshu.